Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be my Will I Read It for the month of December. As you can see, I have my dogs with me today. I'm filming downstairs in my house, which I usually don't do, but Matthew is not home, so I didn't want these two lonely boys to be all by themselves. And we have a big rug in here, so if they decide to run around and play, you probably can't hear them as well as you could if they were upstairs. Also, the lighting is probably not great in here, but that's just going to have to be what it is. I'm going to go through some books that are coming out in December, and as always, I'm filming this in the middle of the month, so some of these may already be out. You can feel free to let me know down below if you want to read these or if you have already read these, and I'm just going to be sharing sort of my thoughts and opinions on them, having not read them. Before we jump right into it, let me know if you would prefer me to do these videos a month in advance. Like, let me know if instead of doing December right now, you think I should be doing January, so you can have your eyes out for those that are coming out, or if you think that doing them in the middle of the month where the books are coming out is fine, because it's like putting them on your radar. Just let me know. So first we have Anastasia by Sophie Lark. This is, I believe, an Anastasia fantasy retelling. I've actually heard a lot of people reading this already, and I feel like I've heard kind of mixed reviews. It has a pretty good rating on Goodreads. It has 4.2 right now. Most of the reviews that I feel like I've heard have been like 3 stars. People thought it was just fine. So I do find that interesting. This came out on December 6th, and you'll have to let me know if you're interested in reading that. I'm not interested in it, I guess. But I don't think it's something that I'm like dying to read, if that makes sense. Next, we also have Queen of Myth and Monsters by Scarlett St. Clair, which comes out on the 20th. This is, again, another retelling, I think, of Adrienne and Isolde. I don't know that much about them. I know that I used to have the first book in the series on my TBR, and I took it off. I filmed a whole TBR clear out, but all of the footage was corrupted, and my editing software wasn't able to work with it. So I was able to edit the whole video, but it would not export. So it was like 2 hours, probably closer to like 4 hours of my life with editing, but because it was like an hour and a half of filming plus all the editing. So that I will never get back. But either way, I never really heard that much about the first book in the series. You'll have to let me know if you read it and how you felt about it, but for me, it's a pass. We also have Sorrow in Starlight, which is the 8th book in the Zodiac Academy series, which I think is a fantasy series where these girls were raised in the human world but find out they're fae, or vice versa. And I don't really know that much about it. I know a lot of people are obsessed with it, but it seems like something that I wouldn't like, so I'm not really interested in reading it at this point. But the 8th book is coming out, and I'm sure a lot of people are really excited about that. We also have 9 Liars by Maureen Johnson, which is coming out, what day? On the 27th. And this is the 5th book in the Truly Devious series. I did not realize, that was a series at all. I think I just found out that that was a series at all, and then to find out they're already on book 5, I thought it would have been like book 2. I didn't realize this was like a 5+ book series. And I think this is like a dark academia series. I don't really know. I've never read any of them. They're YA, but I have heard good things. So maybe that's something to put on your radar as well. You'll have to let me know if you've read any of those other books. Also on December 6th, The Poison Season by Mara Rutherford came out, which is a YA fantasy romance that I have never heard of. It says, outsiders are always given a choice, the forest or the lake. Either way, they're never heard from again. So it sounds kind of spooky. It's got like a mystery element to it. It's about our main character who one day finds an outsider from her land drowning in the lake, and I guess she goes to rescue him, and then it's about the consequences of her actions, I suppose. That sounds kind of interesting. You'll have to let me know if you've heard about that and if you think that sounds interesting. We also have This Cursed Crown by Alexandra Overy. This is another YA fantasy. This is a queer fantasy series. This is book 2 in that series. And I don't know, it kind of sounds like a typical YA fantasy. It says it's a retelling. I don't know what it's a retelling of, but you know, if that sounds interesting to you, you'll have to let me know. I have some backlist YA fantasy that I need to read before I start a new YA fantasy series, and a couple of series that I have started that I need to finish or DNF completely. So before I make any forays into new fantasy books that are coming out, I need to sort of figure out what I'm doing with the series that I have already on my shelves. Next, we have The Light Pirate by Lily Brooks Dalton, which comes out on the 6th of December, or came out on the 6th of December. And this is, I think, a near future book about climate change. It's supposed to have lyrical prose with an added force to climate fiction. Yeah, painting the end of the world with such beauty you can't look away. This is one that I actually am interested in. Personally, I think it sounds really good. So for me, this is another one that I'm going to add to my own little list. But I think this is also the Good Morning America book club pick for December. So next we have a Darby Kane book. I think I own Pretty Little Wife. I think. I can't remember. I feel like I've hauled a bunch of books recently and I haven't read any of them, so I'm not doing so great on that front. But I've definitely heard of Pretty Little Wife, and this is by the same author. It's called The Last Invitation. It also came out on the 6th. And the description says, over the last few years, prominent male figures have begun dying in fluke accidents under mysterious circumstances. Behind it all is the Sophie Foundation. You meet once a week to review files of men who behave badly and mete out justice. Jessa initially jumps at the chance to join, but after having second thoughts, turns to a former friend to bring down the organization. Although they need each other, they don't necessarily trust each other. So this sounds really good. It kind of sounds like a cult book, but also it has like women getting revenge and behaving badly vibes. So this definitely is like a trendier theme for thrillers these days, like the Good for Her book. But I am interested in reading that one as well. That does sound good to me. Next up, we have The Key to My Heart by Leah Lewis, which also came out on the 6th. And this is a Christmas romance. It looks like it says, with a new husband, a fixer-upper cottage, and a chance to tour with the musical she's written, Natalie Fincher has a charmed life until her husband dies. Now a widow, Natalie's only joy is playing piano anonymously in the London train station. When someone starts leaving her sheet music of her husband's favorite songs, Natalie unexpectedly finds love again. So again, this is like a holiday romance, but it also has a grief element. This is not something that I'm interested in reading at this time. Maybe at some point I would be interested in reading this, but for me right now, I don't think I want to read this book, but you'll have to let me know if you are interested in it and if that's like a theme of romances that you like. Next, we have All the Dark Places by Terry Parlato, which I believe is another mystery thriller. And it says, in a small town, Molly Bradley's friends gather to celebrate her husband Jay's 40th birthday. In the morning, Molly discovers Jay brutally murdered in his study. Boston detective Rita Myers is convinced Jay was murdered by one of the party's attendees. Now Molly is questioning everything she knew about her friends and her husband. So this one, again, sounds like it's going to be a closed circle mystery, which is a thing that I really like. It comes out December 27th, and it's another one that I would definitely be interested in reading. So you'll have to let me know if you are interested in that one as well. Next up, another book that came out on December 6th is called Screaming on the Inside, The Unsustainability of American Motherhood by Jessica Gross. This is a nonfiction book that delves into motherhood in America in modern times. I'm sure it's going to talk about the cost of actually having a baby, the cost of all the stuff to get a baby, as well as like the hospital stay for when you go into labor. And then it also points out the flaws in how American culture perceives motherhood and what to do about it. So again, not a book that I necessarily care about reading right now, but you'll have to let me know if you are interested in that one. Next up, we have The Ingenue by Rachel Kapelke-Dale. This is a thriller, another mystery thriller. Description says, My Dark Vanessa meets the Queen's Gambit, which is pretty interesting. It says it's a new novel of suspense about the bonds of family, the limits of talent, the risks of ambition, and the rewards of revenge. I do love a revenge thriller. I love a revenge plot. It is a plot device that I find very intriguing. This again came out on December 6th. You'll have to let me know if you're interested in that. Next we have The Sunshine Girls by Molly Fader, which is about Betty Kay and Kitty, who met in nursing school, don't have much in common. So this is going to be a lifelong book of the two girls following their friendship. It takes place in Iowa from 67 until 50 years later, when two estranged sisters uncover family secrets. Interesting. I'm pretty actually intrigued by this one. I do like a sister story. That is a plot line that I like. I also like Unlikely Friends. I find that really interesting. And I'm interested in multi-generational stories. I can't tell based on that description if this one is going to have that element. But again, I do think it sounds interesting. It also came out on December 6th. You'll have to let me know if you're interested in this one. It's tagged on Goodreads as chick lit and historical fiction. So, I don't know. Another one we have, Roses in the Mouth of a Lion, which is about Razia Mirza, who grew up in a very close-knit close-knit, I'm assuming it's supposed to be, Pakistani-American family. She ends up going to a prestigious school in Manhattan, and a rift between her and her family grows. A rift grows between her and her family. I wish I could speak. Now Razia has started to develop feelings for Angela, and she must choose between her family, her faith, and her future. So this one, again, sounds pretty interesting to me, but it also doesn't sound like anything I'm going to be running out to get my hands on right away. I'll probably wait for reviews on this one. It's, again, tagged as literary fiction, and it's queer fiction. So I am a little bit interested in this for the queer element, but it does sound like it's going to be extremely character-driven. And while I like, or I should say, while I can like really character-driven books, I'm typically a plot-driven reader, so I don't know if that plot is enough to really make me that, like, intrigued, if that makes sense. Next up, also on December 6th, we have The Seamstress of Sardinia, which is an American debut of an Italian writer, so I'm interested. This is a historical fiction book set in Italy in 1900 Sardinia, and I assume it's about a seamstress. Here's the thing about me. I'm not really that interested in historical fiction for the most part, so I don't think I'm going to be that. I'm going to wait for reviews on this and see what people say about it, because historical fiction usually is not my vibe. I feel like it takes a very specific thing in historical fiction for me to enjoy it, and mostly that is me being interested in the events that are happening around that time. So I don't know if this one's going to be for me. I will probably skip it, but I would love to hear if other people are interested in this. Next, we have The Book of Everlasting Things by Anshul Malhotra, I think is how that is pronounced. This is another historical fiction, but this one has a romance element, of course. It says, on a January morning in 1938, Samir Vij first locks eyes with Firdas Khan through the rows of perfume bottles in his family's Attar shop in Lahore. Over the years that follow, the perfumer's apprentice and calligrapher's apprentice fall in love with their ancient crafts and with each other. So this is set in Pakistan. As the struggle for Indian independence gathers force, their beloved city is ravaged by partition. Suddenly, they're on opposite sides. Samir, who is a Hindu, becomes Indian, and Firdas, who is Muslim, becomes Pakistani. So this is actually, again, what I was mentioning, how if I'm going to be interested in historical fiction, I have to be interested in the, like, events of the time that are happening. Those are events that I could be interested in. So now I'm pretty excited to read that book. I know that this is not the same thing. I've been watching Indian Matchmakers a lot. We finished season 1, and we finished season 1 like 2 days ago, and I think we're probably going to start watching season 2 now. And if you haven't watched that show, you should. It's very, very interesting, especially if you don't know anything about the matchmaking process. Like, I don't know anything about the matchmaking process, or didn't prior to this. But what I find really interesting is that they're always looking for a person from a specific region, or who follows, like, there's one girl who's Sikh and she wants another Sikh, which makes sense, because you would want someone culturally similar to you. That's also part of the reason matchmaking is still common in the US, at least, I think. My thought is, if you want to marry someone who's, like, of your same cultural background, it would be helpful to get someone who, like, has biodatas, that's what the, like, spreadsheets are called, of people who are from, like, a bunch of different cultural backgrounds, and they can, like, match you with exactly what you want, which I just find fascinating, but I just thought that was interesting. Next we have The Dressmaker of Prospect Heights, which, again, doesn't sound interesting to me. I will read you what it's about, though, or, like, go through it. It's by Kitty Zeldis. It's historical fiction, came out on the 6th. It's set in Brooklyn in 1924. It's about, like, the Jazz Age and people living in 1920s New York and the secrets that they hold. Again, I'm sure a lot of people would be really interested in this book. I'm just not particularly interested, so I'm probably not going to read that book. We have another historical fiction called In Love's Time by Kate Breslin. This came out on the 1st of December. And this is, again, summer of 1918, and it's a historical fiction, Christian fiction, romance. I also don't read any Christian fiction. Kind of gets on my nerves. I don't read it. It's not for me. If it's for you, that's great. But this is Christian fiction, and I think it's about World War I, based on when it's set. Again, not for me, not something that I'm interested in reading personally, but if you are, that's great for you, and I hope you enjoy it. Next, we have All the Lost Places by Amanda Dykes. Which again is historical fiction. This is historical fiction and Christian fiction set in Italy. It's about someone... Oh, this might be a retelling of Moses. So it says, discovered floating in a basket along the canals of Venice, Sebastian Travato wrestles with questions of his origins. Decades later, on an assignment to translate a rare book, Daniel Goodman finds himself embroiled in a web of secrets carefully kept within the ancient city and in the mystery of the man whose story the book does not finish. Sebastian. I don't care about that, but I am a little interested that it sounds like it might be a, what's it called? A retelling of Moses. And apparently the first plot line happens in 1807 and the second plot line happens in 1904. So it's not present day. It's two historical fiction plot lines. Next we have The Lipstick Bureau by Michelle Gable. And I have a feeling this is going to be about a spy that I've tried to read multiple books about, and all of the books are poorly written, in my opinion. Inspired by a real-life female spy. This is historical fiction about female spies during World War II. I could be interested in reading this. I'm probably not going to run out and buy it, or run out and get it from my library or anything anytime soon. I might be more interested in reading this if, like, it sounds like something my mom or my sister would want to get, and we share a Kindle account, so if they got it on the Kindle, I might read it a few years down the line, but overall, I don't know if that's something for me. Next, we have Witcha Gonna Do by Avery Flynn, which is a fantasy romance. It's like a witchy book. It looks cute, though. It's the cover of it doesn't give me big fantasy romance vibes. It gives me, like, contemporary romance vibes. But it's apparently she's a witch, and it's going to be a love story. And they have to work to save her family and outmaneuver some evil-minded, nefarious forces bent on world domination. So this sounds really cute. It's the first book in a new series called the Witchington series, and I could definitely be interested in reading this one. It just sounds like something that could be like a cute, fun, rompy time, and I think I would have a good time with that. The Widowmaker by Hannah Morrissey is the second book in the Black Harbor series. It's a mystery thriller. I'm not going to read about what it's about because it sounds like it's a detective story. I'm not really that interested in reading, like, detective-type crime stories for the most part, so I'm probably going to skip this. It came out on December 6th. You'll have to let me know if you have read this series and if you are interested in continuing in it. Next, we have A Dangerous Business by Jane Smiley. And this is another historical fiction, but it's a mystery. It's like a historical mystery. And it's a mystery set in 1850s Gold Rush, California, as two young prostitutes follow a trail of missing girls. See, this, again, sounds like it could be something I'm interested in. I haven't read that many books that are set during the Gold Rush in the 1850s in California. And, again, I do like stories about friends. I think following sex workers is, like, an interesting viewpoint that we don't get a lot in fiction. So I would be interested in reading this. And then, of course, girls going missing and having, like, amateur detectives figure it out is much more up my alley than, like, professional detectives. This book came out on the 6th as well, so it is already available if you are interested in it. Next, we have Well Traveled by Jen DeLuca, comes out this month. This is, I think, the third book in the Well Met series by Jen DeLuca, which is, I believe they're all set at Renaissance fairs. So I haven't read any of these books, but I do plan on reading them eventually. Then another romance we have is So This Is Love by Tracy Ann Dreen, and it's apparently a perfect romance for Valentine's Day, so it's a holiday romance, and it's a sequel to So This Is Christmas, which I have not read. I've never heard of Tracy Ann Dreen before, but it sounds like she writes holiday romances, so you'll have to let me know if you are interested in picking this one up. Then we have To Get to the Other Side by Kelly Olert, and this is apparently another romance, but so it says, when Trixie stops her car and scoops up a chicken in the middle of the road, she needs to find a new place to live that allows pets. Bear owns, of course his name is Bear. Bear owns a flower business and is upset when he finds that his sisters have posted his spare room for rent. Now Trixie and Bear must figure out how to save his business and navigate the attraction they feel for each other. That sounds kind of cute. I don't know if I'm, like, dying to read that one, but I will wait on reviews and see if other people like it. Next we have Twice in a Lifetime by Melissa Barron, which is about a woman who moves to a small town to deal with her chronic anxiety, and then she gets a text from a man who says he is her husband, and apparently it's a time travel book. So this one I am actually interested in. This is kind of giving me The Time Traveler's Wife vibes, except for in that one I think it was like the girl's life, she was living straight, and the guy's life, he kept bouncing around in the future and the past, and so she knew who he was before he'd ever met her. Anyways, yeah, The Time Traveler's Wife meets Una Out of Order. So I really liked The Time Traveler's Wife, and I read it in middle school, and then I read Una Out of Order last year, I believe, or earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it as well. I think I gave it 4 stars. So, and time travel is a thing that I love. So I am excited about this. So that sounds really interesting to me. But you'll have to let me know if you are interested in reading that one as well. Next, we have Your Table is Ready, Tales of a New York City Maitre d' by Michael Cecchi Azzolina. I don't know how to pronounce that, but apparently it's a memoir of a guy who was a maitre d' at fancy restaurants in New York City. This, again, sounds really, really interesting to me, and I am interested in reading this. I love a good memoir, and I also really liked Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, so I'm interested in learning more about the restaurant business. My stint in food service was so brief that I never even worked in a real restaurant. I worked in like an over-the-counter taco place, and then I worked at a self-serve yogurt place. So I didn't really, I never waitressed. I never, worked in a kitchen. So I find stuff like that very, very interesting, and I am interested in reading this one. It came out on December 6th as well. Next, we have a book that I'm not at all interested in, and it's called The Tudors in Love, Passion and Politics in the Age of England's Most Famous Dynasty by Sarah Gristwood. And here's the thing. I say I'm not at all interested in this, but maybe I should be, because I've tried to read historical fiction set around Tudor England, and I know nothing about it. Wolf Hall by Hilary Mandel. I tried to read that series. I had no idea what was going on the whole time. So maybe if I read, a historical book, a history book or a biography about the Tudors, I will, actually know what's happening, and therefore understand when I try to read historical fiction going forward. So maybe I should put this on my list, but as of right now, it's not a high priority. For some YA books, we have No Accident by Laura Bates, and this is a YA mystery thriller. It's about a group of 17s who wash up on a deserted island after the plane they're on crashes. I don't want to read any more about this, but apparently they have secrets. It sounds a little bit like Lost, which is a TV show that I really liked for the first couple of seasons it was on, and then tapered off watching it and never finished it. But I am, interested in, again, a closed circle mystery. There's only 7 of them. They're on this island. They're stuck, and they have all these secrets coming out. I do think that sounds really, really interesting. So the next book is another one that came out on December 6th. Marvel, are you going upstairs? Come here. You don't want to hang out anymore? If I don't give him attention, he just goes by himself really slow. Come on. Come here, Marv. Come on. Come on. You want to come here? Thanks. Yeah. That's good. You sit down. That's so good. He's such a baby. Okay. Acting the Part by Z.R. Allure comes out on December 6th as well. And this is again, queer YA contemporary romance. And it follows an actor who's on a hit TV show. I'm not going to read this book. As I've mentioned, I don't really like celebrities in my books, apparently. It's delightfully tropey, is what it says. What are the tropes? Fake dating. I do like fake dating. I might wait for reviews of this one. Overall, it's not really, drawing me in. But I could, I suppose, be interested in that in the future, just probably not right now. Another book that came out on December 6th is called Come Out, Whatever You Are by Catherine Foxfield, which is a YA horror. Seems to have ghosts. I really hate this cover. No offense to the cover artist. I think that's extremely ugly. And it already has a 3.5 on Goodreads, which is not super promising. And it's set on a reality show. It's a reality game show that'll scare you to death. I don't know if I'm that interested in this one either, but you'll have to let me know if you are. I do like game show type things. I'm interested in reading more. I like them in theory, I guess, because I like to watch game shows and competition shows, like Survivor or Hell's Kitchen, Love Island even, F-Boy Island, all of that I find very fun. Indian Matchmaking, while not a game show, I feel like has similar vibes, like reality show vibes. That being said, in book form, I've not read one yet that works for me. Also on December 6th, we had a sequel to the book Downworld, which I've never heard of, but it's called Yesterworld by Rebecca Phelps. You will have to let me know if you have read Downworld and what you thought of it. I really like the cover of this, and it's a dystopia. It's a YA dystopia. It has pretty good ratings. 4.2 it has 23 ratings total and 4 reviews. But it did just come out, and it's been published by Wattpad Books, which is that Wattpad, the fan fiction site? Is that where After was published? You'll have to let me know if you know. I don't know. But I am, interested in this, kind of, but I have not heard of that before, which I find kind of interesting. Next we have A Million to One by Adiba Jigurdar. I'm really sorry if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but it's Titanic and Ocean's 8. So it's a heist for treasure aboard an infamous ship. I'm going to start over. It is a treasure heist aboard the infamous ship that sank in the Atlantic many years ago. So it's Titanic, but there's a heist on board. A woman-run heist. I'm interested in this. That sounds good. Historical, queer, YA. I don't know. It sounds like it could be interesting. I do like a heist. I like a heist story. I do like an all-female cast. I like a lesbian book, so I'm interested in that. The next book we have came out on December 1st, and this is a YA dystopia called The Union by Leah Vernon. This is a dystopian future where Americans were divided by their race and their class, and we follow a 16-year-old girl whose parents broke the purity clause, so I'm guessing she's mixed, and she's impure, and she must escape from tyranny and sneak over the border to freedom. I don't know if I'm interested in this book. Has a 3.7, which is not a bad rating, but it sounds like an interesting take on YA dystopia, but there's a whole section about they believe, like, this rebel group believes that God sent this particular person to, like, save them from this, and I can't tell if that's going to be, like, religious intrigue or based on, like, modern Christianity, because if it's based on modern Christianity, I'm not at all interested in reading that. Next we have Ogland by Erin Caroffer, which has no information about it except for that it's YA, and it came out on December 6th. So this top review says, this novel is a dystopia where rich people can spend their lives in suits enacting various fantasies. It's an idea similar to Westworld, only the settings are more varied and the workers are human. So, interesting. That is interesting, but I don't know if I want to read that. Next we have The Citadel of Forgotten Myths by Michael Moorcock. So this is an epic dark fantasy, and it's about Elric, who's an estranged emperor of an empire that I'm not going to try to pronounce, who's struggling with his nature while desperately striving to move forward with his dying empire alongside the constant thirst of his soul-sucking sword, Stormbringer. So this is the 13th book in a series. I should have said that to start. You'll have to let me know if you're reading the Elric saga. I am not going to start reading a 13-book series at this point in time. It's not for me. But I hope you are enjoying it if you are reading it. A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in the Elements of Cadence series. It's a fantasy romance series, came out on December 6th, and I don't really know what it's about because it's the second book in the series and I don't want to spoil myself. But you'll have to let me know if you're reading the Elements of Cadence series. It looks like it's humans and spirits. So I'm wondering if it's like kind of, not monster romance, but if it's like human and non-human romance. Sorry, I'm bumping the camera. I'm trying to like stretch my legs out because they're sore of sitting under me for an hour. Next we have A History of Fear by Luc Dumas. This is a horror mystery thriller with queer elements apparently, and it's YA. And it's about Grayson Hale, who is the most infamous murderer in Scotland, is better known by a different name, the Devil's Advocate. Apparently he's a 25-year-old American grad student who rose to instant notoriety when he confessed to the slaughter of his classmate, Liam Stewart, claiming the devil made him do it. Okay, so this is an eerie literary suspense. I'm interested in that. That sounds pretty good. It sounds like it could be kind of cheesy, but I do like that kind of thing, so I'm thinking that would be pretty interesting for me. That came out on December 6th. So you'll have to let me know if you have read that book or if you've heard of that book before. We have Ashes of Man by Christopher Ruocchio, which is the 5th book in the Sun Eaters series, which is apparently a galaxy-spinning series that merges the best of space opera and epic fantasy. I've not read this, but you'll have to let me know if you have read the series and if you're interested in it. I really like the cover. That's one of the main reasons I clicked on this one. I think it's got a really cool looking cover. So yeah, you'll have to let me know if you are reading that series or if you have started that series or if you have it on your list to read at some point. The next book I have is The Lost Witch by Paige Crutcher, which comes out on the 27th. And this is a fantasy romance set in 2 timelines, or paranormal romance, I guess, about witches set in 2 timelines. And in 1922, we are following Bridget Heron, who is a powerful witch and healer in a small town. And in 2022, the small town is under siege. The witches have been using their chaos magic to widen the rift between the island and the other world. This sounds interesting to me, but apparently Bridget ends up getting swept away from the past timeline into the present timeline, and she wakes up not understanding how she got to the future. And again, I do like time travel books, so I am interested in reading this one. The next book I'm going to talk about is called A Small Affair by Flora Collins, which comes out also on the 27th. And this is a young woman's life is torn apart when her wealthy ex-lover is found dead along with his wife. So this, again, is a mystery thriller, and I'm assuming that the mistress is going to be either framed for this crime or actually committed the crime. But it says, Vera uncovers layers of lies and close-kept secrets held by an inner circle of filthy rich tech millionaires who will go to any lengths to protect their reputations. So this is another book that I think sounds kind of interesting. I like the class consciousness representation in books. I think that's interesting. I also am kind of interested in, like I read The Maid recently, and I'm going to describe this the best way I can, and how in The Maid, it's not so subtly discussed that the fact that Molly, the main character, is a maid means that she gets to sit in on other people's conversations, and they pay her no mind because she's not part of their world, and so to them it's like she's a piece of furniture. I think it's interesting to think about like mistresses in that same light, because their whole thing is that they're being kept a secret, so it's almost like you forget that they're there. So I'm interested in that as a concept, and I'm interested in reading that book. Next up we have Weightless by Diane Yvonne. Who is it? Yvette Dion. I don't know how her name is pronounced. I apologize. It's a portrait of a woman on a journey towards understanding our society and herself. Weightless holds up a mirror to the world we live in and asks us to imagine the future we deserve. So I am interested in this book because I think it's going to talk a little bit about like fat phobia, and also about just like being comfortable in your skin regardless of like weight, because it sounds like she's going to talk about her race as well because she's Black. I don't know. So I am interested in this in theory again, but I don't know who this person is. And like I've mentioned, if they're a celebrity and I don't know who they are, I probably won't read this because I might not be as interested in that. But it doesn't sound like she is a celebrity. She's just a person. But it's a narrative for plus-size Black women and the forces they encounter in everyday society, detailing her experience and representation. So I am kind of interested in that book, but not like totally interested. I think I will wait on reviews for that one as well. Next up is one that I actually am a little interested in. And this is the biography of Elizabeth Taylor by Kate Anderson Bauer. Hold on. Okay, so this book is called Elizabeth Taylor: The Grit and Glamour of an Icon by Kate Anderson Brower. And it's about Elizabeth Taylor. It's 500 pages, which seems like a lot. I'm interested in reading this book. I actually am interested in reading this one. It's the first ever authorized biography of Elizabeth Taylor. And I'm interested, I'm interested in reading this one. Okay, well there you go. I actually made it through my whole list this time. Are you proud of me? Those are a bunch of books that are coming out in the month of December, or have already come out. You'll have to let me know down below which of these books you are interested in reading, if any. And also let me know if you've read any of these already. I let you know the few that I'm interested in. There's actually quite a bit on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 that I'm interested in maybe picking up at some point. I entered a few giveaways on Goodreads for some of these, so I recommend you do the same. As always, I hope you're having a great day, night, morning, whatever, wherever you are. That's a bunch of people's outro, and I really want to seal it. But anyways, like this video if you liked it, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!